Hello friends, in the previous session we had covered about the Judge Advocate General's Department. In this session, numbering 14, we would see how does entry to the Judge Advocate General's Department takes place. Now, the Judge Advocate General's Department, as we had seen earlier, has got professionals who are military lawyers and they have been trained, they acquire experience relating to different topics and aspects concerning law as it impacts the armed forces. It would be interesting and useful to see how many candidates are inducted every year in the army by way of short service commission for entry to the Judge Advocate General's Department. The figures total for the calendar years 2010 till 21 are indicated on this slide in front of you. This would you could notice that excepting 2013 when only 2 candidates were taken in, usually the figures vary from 13 and they have gone up to 27. It should become clear that there is no fixed vacancy and the numbers taken in are based on the annual wastage rate and the future expansion requirements. And amongst the total candidates, how many males and females were taken are also available on the slide and can be seen to get an idea. This would in any case make it very clear that vacancies are very limited and therefore only the best available material is selected for induction in the army. Eligibility criteria lays down that only Indian nationals are selected and they should be unmarried when they join the Officers Training Academy, and even during the training they are not permitted to contract marriage. There are certain laid down parameters. The induction is open both to male and female candidates. As we had seen earlier, there are vacancies fixed and earmarked for males and females. As far as educational qualifications are concerned, the candidate should have minimum 55% marks in the graduation, which could be 3 years or 5 years law degree, and they should fulfill the criteria for getting enrolled as an advocate by the Bar Council of India. In other words, whatever the Bar Council expects should also be applicable here and would be expected that candidates meet that requirement. Relating to physical standards, as far as height is concerned, for males, minimum height is 157 centimeters. In the case of girls, it is 153 centimeters. And other requirements, say, for example, weight or the uh, visual standards, eyesight, etc. One could see the details which are there in the official website of Directorate General of Recruiting, and that is www.joinindianarmy.nic.in. All this information would be there, and it would be in the interest of candidates that they peruse these parameters and check up whether they meet the criteria, because otherwise lest there would be a disappointment later in case one is not accepted for want of these criteria. It is also useful to get an idea as to what does the military screening look for in the candidates. So, this some qualities which are quite apparent are there on the slide in front of you, and it is expected, it is seen that the candidates who come should possess these qualities, and the tests of various types are designed to uh, check this, to bring it out, to highlight whether these are there or they are not there. And these are patriotism. The military service expects that there should be an intense feeling for the country. The candidate should have courage, which should be visible. They should have initiative. They should be able to act as a member of a team, to behave as a team member. They would be expected to show requisite leadership. Communication is also very important, both in terms of written and verbal, as also the body language. Then approach should be methodical. They should go in a systematic manner to try and get into the task given to it and complete it accordingly. Uh, while doing the task, they should be well organized. They would be expected to abide by the rules, set up an example of good discipline. The approach should be analytical, not haphazard, with a positive outlook and displaying the desired aspects of honesty and integrity. So these are some of the qualities that the interviewers or the psychologist look in the candidates. Selection process has got number of steps. The candidates are required to submit an application online. This is sent to the Director General of Recruiting, which is in R.K. Puram at New Delhi. Their office carries out shortlisting of applications based on the yardstick given to them for that particular course, based on the vacancies. Then the shortlisting results are posted on the website. Thereafter, the candidates, they get an intimation. They go to the one of the selection boards. There are a number of selection boards in the country. So they proceed for services selection board interview and psychological test, which is a week-long selection process. These candidates who are found fit are sent to military hospital for medical examination, which is carried out by the concerned specialist, and based on the result of the SSB interview and medical examination, then a final merit list is prepared, and the candidates, to fulfill the number of vacancies at the Officers Training Academy at a place called St. Thomas Mount in Chennai, are then sent intimation to report there for further training. After the issue of advertisement, as I have made it very clear, applications are to be forwarded online to the Additional Director General of Recruitment at Ramakrishnappuram, New Delhi. Selection boards are located at various places like Dehradun, Varanasi, Meerut, Bhopal, Bangalore, etc., Kolhapur, and the candidates may get a letter to report to any of these centers. There is nothing very special about it. This is on as required basis, depending upon the workload with the SSBs at that particular time. I would also like to make it clear here and inform the viewers that there is no separate SSB. The process is not separate for selection of candidates for the Judge Advocate General Department. They are normal selection process. So if the candidate has what is called OLQ, officer-like qualities for infantry or artillery, he is good enough, also as a military lawyer. So they do not look for anything special in the candidates for JAG, and there are no tests, no questions based on law there. Now, the selection process, which is a week long, is quite elaborate, comprehensive. It has withstood the test of the time. It's being followed for a number of years, and there is a full-time 6 days screening schedule. Each candidate is assessed and evaluated by three selection board officers, which consist of an interviewing officer, IO, there is a group testing officer, and there is a psychologist. Also, in one of the boards, the president of that board sits as the interviewing officer. So usually each candidate is assessed by three different officers individually. They all assess him separately, and then they carry out a counseling. They have a consultation amongst them, and if all three are of the view that it is a fit material, well, the candidate is selected. It is also to be appreciated that a candidate who is not selected at the SSB may still do very well. He may be a top class material, perhaps for corporate sector, for civil services, for political career, and therefore one should not feel disheartened or disappointed if one is not selected at the services selection board, because their approach is to find out the suitability of the candidate for service in military. The type of tests which take place during this week-long process are of various different types, like group discussions. As the name suggests, candidates sit down in group, a topic is given, and the participation, the communication skill, the thought process, how does one present, all this is viewed during the uh, group discussion. Then there are individuals lecturate, certain outdoor tests where individuals obstacles are to be encountered, cleared, progressive group tasks that move progressively from stage to stage, half group tasks, then there is a command task and final group task. Well, these are subjected to, these are presented to, and these are required to be carried out by all the candidates. And there is nothing, as I said, separate for the Judge Advocate General's Department. Then this SSB procedure uh, at Services Selection Board also entails officer intelligence rating test, picture perception and description test, word association test, thematic appreciation test, and a situation reaction test. Just to illustrate, word association test, a word would be shown to you and one would be expected to make a sentence based on that word. Similarly, a theme would be given or a situation would be given in the last type of test, and it would be seen as to what is the reaction of the candidate in that situation. When the selection board process is over, then the candidates who have been found fit, they are advised to go to a military hospital for the medical screening. Various tests take place. The candidates are seen by the medical experts. Then, based on the results, a final merit list is prepared and call letters are then issued to selected candidates based on the number of vacancies for which the candidates have to report to Chennai. After the candidates reach Officers Training Academy at St. Thomas Mount in Chennai, a training takes place there for 49 weeks, In between, there is a midterm break. During the training, the candidates are not allowed to marry. There is no separate training. These candidates who are JAG entry would be part of the platoons and companies that would have candidates, say, for infantry, mechanized infantry, armored corps, artillery, and so on. And lastly, the course at OTA is fully residential, and even if a candidate belongs to Chennai or is local, he cannot say that I will stay at my place and come for training. It's a residential course. This training, one is not required to pay anything. It is at government expense. Further, the candidate gets during 49 weeks a stipend at the rate of 21,000 rupees per month, and on successful completion of the training after the passing out parade, they are awarded a postgraduate diploma in defense management and strategic studies by the University of Madras. On successful completion of training, the candidates are then required to proceed to an active infantry battalion in border areas to carry out infantry attachment. So therefore, military lawyers, before they take up the assignments of a legal nature, first they should be acclimatized, they should get used to and exposed to the life in military, and therefore they go to an active infantry battalion and serve there for a period of 2 years on the borders. The usual tenure of engagement for each of the candidate is 10 years under short service commission, and this can be extended by a further period of 4 years. And while a candidate is in short service tenure, he is assessed for his suitability for permanent regular commission, which may be given to those who consent for it, and if they are found fit based on their performance during the earlier tenure as short service commission officer. After the commission, each officer is a class 1 gazetted officer of the union government, and each candidate as an officer gets a parchment commission. It's a paper on which it's a certificate in the form of a certificate, but here it is commission and it is signed by the President of India. It would be interesting to note that after completion of a short service commission tenure, in case if an officer wants to try to get into the judiciary, then he would be happy to know, or she would be happy to know, that service in the Judge Advocate General's Department reckons as judicial service, and therefore the parameters that are laid down with regard to experience in that service in the army, in the Judge Advocate General's Department, would be treated as judicial service. Just to give an idea, the screen here shows the pay scales of officers from the rank of lieutenant to brigadier. There is a pay band, then they get grade pay. The third column is military service pay. And apart from that, there are allowances like field area allowance when they would be with infantry battalion as part of field training of 4,200 per month, high altitude allowance 11,200. In case anyone wants to be a para trooper, then he qualifies in the para training. He gets 1,200 rupees per month as parachute pay, and in case they are utilized as instructor at Institute of Military Law or at some other academy, then they get instructional allowance of 1,800 rupees per month. Some other facilities and perks during the service. An officer is entitled to duly furnished subsidized accommodation. If he is single, not married, then in the officer's mess, or subsequently after marriage, a married accommodation. There are canteen facilities, medical treatment for self and family means wife and children, membership of a club, which may be there, or an institute. There are extensive facilities for games, sports, adventure activities, and there are army schools for providing education for the children of the armed personnel, and these schools are good. Apart from that, when an officer who's married and is posted to border area, then the family gets separated family accommodation. Every year, an officer is entitled to 2 months leave with full pay and 20 days casual leave. Uh, During this leave, leave travel concession or LTC is admissible. After 5 years of service, an officer can go for study leave, and there is an insurance cover by the Army Group Insurance Fund, AGIF, to the extent of rupees 50 lakhs, for which officers have to pay from their salary 5,000 rupees deducted every month to get this cover. And in case one retires, then whatever one has paid together with the interest element is returned to the person at the time of his separation from military service. In the JAG department, there is a scope of for promotion to the rank of Major General. There are 2 posts of Major General in the Judge Advocate General's department. There is one JAG, Judge Advocate General, and the other is called ADG, Additional Director General of Litigation. Both the posts are at Delhi. And lastly, it is to highlight that Army takes care of all your needs but not your greed. There is also a flip side. While it is not all very rosy picture, and the flip side, I would like to highlight that there are continuous and frequent moves in army. One doesn't stay confined to a cantonment or military station. There is a continuous screening, and the performance is being assessed, being watched, recorded. The grant of permanent commission at the end of 14 years is not guaranteed, and if officer is released after completion of 10 or 14 years, then he only gets gratuity, he is not entitled to pension. And another important factor, that the spouse, even if in the same service, means you get married to a person who's also in military, there's no guarantee that the two of you would get to serve in the same station. This may not happen in very many cases. And as a matter of motivation, it is significant to realize that when one is serving in the army, it is service to the nation. It's a high quality, high grade career, and there is glamour of military uniform. Finally, I would like to say that service as a military lawyer by way of commission to any of the 3 wings of the Indian Armed Forces, that is Army, Navy, and Air Force, is undoubtedly an attractive career, and particularly for the law graduates, there could not be anything more attractive, glamorous, and exciting. An exposure to the selection process for selection to the Judge Advocate General's Department, the screening process would make the aspiring candidates, by going through this video, well informed and confident, and that would lead to optimum performance at the selection process.